Welcome to the show. Glad to have you with us on a Friday as we get set for another Notre Dame football home weekend. The Fighting Irish and Purdue, 3:30 kickoff Saturday at Notre Dame Stadium. Of course, you'll hear the action right here on the flagship station for Notre Dame Sports Radio WSBT, 91.5, and the Notre Dame Radio Network all across the nation on the Odyssey app, AUD. ACY. So there are all your ways to listen. And game day coverage starts at 11 a.m. tomorrow at the Linebacker as well. I'll give you some more specific details on that. But we have got, as we've done the last couple of Fridays now, we've got Bryan Driskell of IrishBreakdown.com with us to talk a little Notre Dame football recruiting. We previewed last weekend. It was a big weekend, a massive weekend. And Bryan, I don't know if I'm sure you remember Carter Carls used to cover Notre Dame. You're on mute right now.
Yeah, of course. I got to see him before the game in the press box.
Okay,
So,
yeah. Carter was around. He used to cover Notre Dame recruiting here for a few years, and then he went to Florida State, and he is currently at Texas A&M, which is his alma mater. So he is back in his home state of Texas covering the Aggies. So that's why he was in town. But he tweeted. I think like the next day, or maybe it was, Sunday or Monday, I can't remember. It all blurs together. How significantly different the atmosphere is inside Notre Dame Stadium just in the time since he's been here, which has been about 5 years. It kind of sneaks up on us. I mean, we all know the atmosphere is better, but hasn't it kind of snuck up on you? How different?
I mean, he covered Lathan Ransom's recruitment, who just finished up his Ohio State career last year while at Notre Dame. So it was clearly since the last 5 years or so. And he did a very good job too. I liked Carter, and I thought he did really good work.
Yep, Carter, real good guy. We've had him on our show a few times over the last couple of years with his home and home with Texas A&M. Talking about the Aggies. And so in terms of, again, because they had so many recruits, we talked about it last weekend. Notre Dame did, in like not just in volume, but significant recruits as well. So overall, like, I guess how good of a recruiting weekend can you have when the team loses? How do you think it went overall last weekend?
You can have a great recruiting weekend if your team loses, as long as it's a great environment and a great game. And I've explained this before, and this isn't going to be something new to Irish Breakdown subscribers and listeners, but players and recruits, especially, I should say recruits, don't look at games the way that we do as fans. Obviously, we're invested in it. A lot of us have been lifelong Notre Dame fans. Like I've been a Notre Dame fan since I was 10 years old, and I'm way past 10 years old. So I've been a long time.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. I think Ronald Reagan was the president when I started being a Notre Dame fan, if that answers some questions for you. But they look at it differently. They saw a great environment, a loud environment, wild crowd, both ways, back and forth game. They saw some really good things from Notre Dame, some not very good things from Notre Dame. And I've said before, like, look, and Sean and Trevor talked about this during the show today, but the Irish Breakdown show today. But if you're a defensive end, let's say, and you love Notre Dame and you love Marcus Freeman and you love what this team is about, you remember the run they went on last year, and you're watching Notre Dame's defensive ends not get pressure on the quarterback. There's one of two ways you can look at it, and more often than not, recruits look at it the second way. The first way is, wow, their D line's not that good, or the second way is, dude, I can walk in and play for this team now. And so when you're a defensive recruit, you're watching that game play and you're thinking, you know what, man, I think I could play for them like right
now.
Job
opportunity.
And that's why you lay the foundation from a relationship standpoint early. I like to remind people that the best recruiting class that Notre Dame put together in the last 30 years was put together during the 2007 season. Notre Dame finished with the number 3 ranked recruiting class in the 08 class. Wow. That had Dane Chris, Michael Floyd, Kyle Rudolph, Darius Fleming, Capron Lewis Moore, Trevor Robinson, Robert Blanton, that great class, Jamore Slaughter, that great class got put together during the 3-9 season from 07. Because again, recruits look at it differently. They're looking at the future. They're looking at what's going to be. They're talking about the relationship. So it can go well, even if in a loss. and it went very well for Notre Dame this weekend, with the exception of the outcome.
Yeah, and again, like a 1-point game right down to the wire. I mean, either way, they were going to leave with some kind of buzz. They weren't going to be completely broken because of a 1-point loss. And when you do have the kind of atmosphere that you had in there, you've got the rally towels or whatever and all that different kind of stuff.
The student section was intense during the game, which is right behind where the recruits sit.
Yeah, that corner where the recruits are. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So good vibes, good buzz on that. Maybe, we talked last week about both defensive line and the receivers, the significant guys who were in town during the visit last weekend. So what about the receivers? Did they make a good impression on those guys?
Yeah, I think obviously the relationship with Mike Brown continues to grow. Obviously there's 3 of the receivers I especially felt Notre Dame was in a very good place for coming into the visit. And I think the 2 guys they made the absolute best impression on was Quentin Burrell and Julius Jones Jr., who they really needed to hit a home run with. And I mean, if you're Quentin Burrell, you're being recruited to play boundary receiver, and you watch Malachi Fields get targeted over 10 times and make some big plays in that game. If you're Julius Jones Jr., you're seeing different aspects of this offense first couple games where, they're going to get Jordan Faze on the ball in space, and CJ Carr's throwing the ball over 30 times. And then I think that's the final thing too, is they're watching CJ Carr throw the ball around and be like, hey, this kid's pretty good. He's a freshman, redshirt freshman. I'm going to play with this guy if I come to Notre Dame. And that certainly gets them, a little fired up as well. And then Notre Dame wisely had both Noah Grubbs, their 2026 quarterback commit, and Teddy Gerard, their 2027 quarterback commit, were both on campus. So Notre Dame had a strong offensive performance. I mean, obviously it wasn't a great defensive performance, but Notre Dame showed that they can throw the ball. They are willing to throw the ball. They'll spread the ball around. Eli Raridan had another big day, catching the football. So I think Notre Dame offensively put on a pretty good display for the recruits on campus and made a big move with both Quentin Burrell and Julius Jones Jr. There's still a lot of work to be done. They're not in commit mode right now, as we talked about last week. But Notre Dame has absolutely put themselves either in that top group. Well, they're definitely in the top group, if not on top of the top group for those 2 receivers in particular.
Yeah, and I mean, this is what we've kind of been talking about the last couple of years, because people are like, oh, can whatever happens on the field, how can that impact wide receiver recruiting? Or even, they've talked about, could we get a flip or something like that? Flips aside, I mean, Notre Dame is trying to usher in this new era, and CJ Carr is obviously the spearhead of that. So, I mean, that's got to have some big time impact, both with these guys who are in here and going down the road as well.
Well, what's interesting, Sean, is CJ Carr's had a big impact on recruits for years.
Anyway, yeah.
Well, what's funny is I did a little meet and greet before the game on Saturday. We couldn't do a tailgate, but some people wanted to meet me, and so we kind of did a little meet up in the in between the stadium and the library. And there was a guy that came up and was talking about how he was at the Jeremiah Love commitment ceremony we did on campus, on campus back when he committed to Notre Dame during the Stanford game of 2022. Again, a reminder that recruits don't often care. Jeremiah Love committed the day that Notre Dame lost to Stanford in 2022. Yeah. Manti Te'o committed to Notre Dame despite his official visit being during the Syracuse game of 2008.
Wow.
I mean, just saying, kids don't care as much about this stuff as fans do. They are much more forward thinking and big picture thinking. But looking at it, I mean, CJ's been a big name from the minute he committed to Notre Dame, and that's back in 2022. And so kids have known about him for a while. There was a lot of buzz this spring when kids were on campus watching him throw. We would hear from I've heard from defensive players. There's a current freshman on Notre Dame on defense who's one of their bigger recruits, won't say whose family talked about how CJ Carr had a big impact on them choosing Notre Dame because of what they think he can do. And now that we're actually getting to see him play and make some big plays and make some big throws and perform well, it's certainly moving the needle with a lot of these recruits and saying, hey, look, this is where we are in games 1 and 2 of CJ's career. Imagine what we're going to be like in year 3 when you get here. And that's kind of the sales pitch for the 2027 receivers.
Talking Notre Dame football recruiting with Bryan Driskell, irishbreakdown.com. So what about the other side that I mentioned, the defensive line? How did it go with those guys? Because, again, some big impact guys were here last weekend.
Well, big, literally. Devin Robertson and Braden Parks are both on campus this weekend. They're 2 6'2", 6'3", 300 plus pounders. Braden Parks is around 295, 300. Devin Robertson's over 315, 320 pounds. And they loved it. I mean, they both love Notre Dame. They continue to build a great relationship with Al Washington. Obviously, the defensive line didn't play great overall, but, one of the interesting aspects that's not getting talked enough about, Sean, is the defensive line is not doing a very good job in pass pro right now, but the D tackles have been pretty good against the run since the first quarter of the Miami game. First quarter wasn't great, but since then, the run defense has been pretty good. And like the long run that Marcel Reed had late in the game, they had 3 defensive ends on the field. They were in a pass rushing situation. They didn't even have really D tackles on the field on that play. So I think that's been an impressive part of this is they're watching Gabriel Rubio and they're watching Jared Dawson, really fill gaps and be pluggers up the middle and make some plays against the run. So there are some things they can look at and say, hey, I can fit in this defense that way. But again, they were more concerned about the atmosphere. They're more concerned about the relationships, how they're going to be used. In that regard, I think they made a strong impression, as they did with David Jacobs, the 5-star defensive end that was on campus from Georgia. He's obviously childhood friends with Teddy Gerard, which is huge. But once again, Notre Dame showed, hey, look, yeah, this game was a bad outcome. We're a play here, play there, and here's what coach can say. Boy, if we had a pass rusher like you, coaches do this all the time. It's hilarious. Yeah. If we had a pass rusher like you, boy, I tell you what, man, we maybe would have been able to come up with a play like that. And you know what, Sean? That stuff works.
It's amazing. Just stroke the old ego a little bit. That's all it takes.
Well, it's also true because David Jacobs is a stud pass rusher, but it's
true too.
It's like, maybe he wouldn't have helped that game because he's a junior in high school. But when he gets to Notre Dame, if they can get him, that would certainly have a huge impact.
Well, so what, you talked about results and the lack of impact, but Notre Dame is 0-2 right now. So has that had any impact on Notre Dame's recruiting efforts to this point?
Not yet, no. No, do I think that they can have a 2008 type of class if they go 3-9 or 4-8? No, I think it's a different era, and they will lose some guys. But look, if they can right the ship and roll, I don't like this excuse. It drives me nuts. You know how I feel about this, Sean. But it is a good sell pitch to recruits. Guys, we're 3 points away from being tied with Miami. We had the ball at the end of the game. We lost by a point to Texas A&M. We lost in the final seconds of that game. We did not play good football. We didn't play very well and still almost beat A&M. We played pretty bad and still almost beat Miami. That's actually true. And that's kind of what the sales pitch is now. But eventually you got to kind of stop explaining why you're losing and you got to start winning. So if they can go fix this and go on a roll, boy, I tell you what, it's going to get them right back where they need to be from a recruiting standpoint. But so far, it hasn't impacted them. If this continues, then it certainly could have an impact, but it hasn't yet.
Much easier, obviously, when you don't have to worry about L's and you can just concentrate on W's and everyone stays happy.
I know.
So this weekend, there'll be more recruits. It won't look like nearly what last weekend looked like. There were a couple guys – we talked about it last week who had games on Saturdays, like last week and couldn't make it into town. So any guys in town this weekend who would have been here last weekend?
Yeah. Joey O'Brien's going to be in town this weekend for sure. He did tweet that out and we got confirmation on that. He had a game on Saturday. That's why he couldn't come. Elijah Golden, the stud defensive tackle from Sarasota, Florida, wasn't in town. I know some people were worried about that because he was like the last commit and, came down to them and Alabama and Oklahoma, and he wasn't on campus last weekend, which caused some people to worry. But he was on. He'll be on campus this weekend as well. So
okay,
that's the two big ones. And then there's actually a couple 2028 defensive linemen from the Chicago area that are going to be on campus this weekend as well. Cameron McGee and Darian Prescott, who are stud top 50, top 25, top 50 caliber players in the 2028 class. So current sophomores. That will also be on campus this weekend. Those are a couple names to keep an eye on. But as you said, it won't be the kind of monster weekend like it was last week, it was always going to be the case. It wasn't going to be like that.
Exactly. Jim's got a question in the YouTube chat. Do the recruits look at the numbers of players currently at their position and how much waiting to, how long they may have to wait to actually get on the field and that kind of thing?
Most players will look at that. Now, how much weight they put on varies by player and varies by position. An offensive lineman might be more willing to wait a couple years than a wide receiver or a corner or something like that. So it's certainly a part of the conversation. But as we've seen with Notre Dame, they go out and sign Leonard Moore and as a standout freshman, and they go out and sign Carson Hobbs, and then a year later they sign Dallas Golden, Mark Zachary, and Cree Thomas, who are all really talented players, and then that gets followed up by Kari Adams and and Aiden Pouncey and Chaz Smith. So when you're really rolling, kids are going to understand. Look, I'm going to get my time's going to come. They're going to do a rotation, and that certainly has helped as well. But it's certainly a factor, Jim. There's no question about that. It just where it rates on the most important list just varies from player to player.
Right, exactly. All right, good recruiting stuff. Bryan Driskell, IrishBreakdown.com. New website setup at IrishBreakdown.com.
Very excited about that. We are now partnered with Roundtable Sports, which is a brand new startup and venture who was started by James Heckman, who also started Rivals and also started Maven when we first launched and partnered with them. And so we're excited about it. And we started posting on Saturday, but we did our official launch yesterday. So we've done all the walkthroughs on how to post and all that with everybody that writes for us, but I'm excited about it. Much better layout, way less obnoxious ads throughout it, like what we were dealing with before. So but you can still find it at irishbreakdown.com. It's still free content, so it's not something you have to put a credit card in for. If you're a premium member, this is just a free site. It doesn't impact the premium members, the podcast listeners, the YouTube listeners at all. This is just where our free written stories will be hosted.
All right. IrishBreakdown.com. Check it out. And of course, you can also subscribe to the Premium Champions Lounge if you want and get all kinds of good, juicy intel, whether it's recruiting, team stuff, whatever else. You do have to, sign certain documents to make sure that you're behaving yourself if you do that, though. Vince?
No, you don't.
Oh, you don't? You don't have to sign stuff. Okay. No. All right.
Just have to promise it's your firstborn. That's all.
Yes. See? Sign docs, firstborn. Vince was a late scratch for the show. He was supposed to be in next. I've got your out time. If I get you out 5 minutes before your out time, can you hang around for a little bit longer? I've got some Chris Ash audio that I think might be of interest to you. People are percolating after a rant that you had apparently yesterday that I haven't been able to listen to. I wish I had a clip from that. I would play that right now. Okay, so Bryan Driskell, hang around. We'll take this time out. We'll come back. We'll talk a little Notre Dame, Purdue, Notre Dame defense. That is coming up next. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We continue Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Sean Stires and joined by Bryan Driskell, the man at IrishBreakdown.com. Today, we talked a little Notre Dame football recruiting to start the show. I wanted to play this for you. I dug something up, this whole whose defense is it and all that kind of stuff. We've talked a lot this week about Notre Dame's defense, and again, USMA 87, he chimed in the YouTube chat. Bryan, please, another defensive rant. Do it. I really got to listen to this whole thing, so I've got to find it. But new defensive coordinator, Chris Ash. We talked to Ash early in training camp, and I believe it must have been Marcus Freeman's first press conference where Freeman mentioned something about it being Chris Ash's defense. And here's the response. Someone relayed that to Chris Ash, that Marcus Freeman said, your defense, whatever. So here is Chris Ash with his response to that.
Well, yeah, he's going to tell you if it doesn't go well, it's on me. That's just like, again, I said this when I first got here. If it's not broken, don't try to fix it. We're going to try to make it better, and we're going to try to elevate it, and that's really that's a challenge because it's already performed at a really high level. But if you're afraid of the challenge, don't come here. And there's standards, there's expectations, there's great coaches, there's great players, and we embrace that, and that's what we want. And this is a group effort. This isn't me. It's the coaching staff, the players. We're working this thing together. And, we're going to throw some things out. We're going to try it, see what it looks like, see if it fits. If it doesn't, we're going to move on to something else. We're going to do what we need to do to win games. We're going to do what our players here can do. What does that mean? I don't know. We'll see. But every week could be something different, too, depending on who we play and what we got to do.
All right. Whose blood is boiling right now after listening to that? Again, that's Chris Ash from early in training camp talking about the defense. You heard him say a lot of things. There were words that came out.
There was so much coach speak cliche talk.
And that was there. That, we said that afterwards, and some people were kind of, coming at us, when we were playing some of those sound bites. It was the whole thing was just coach speak was all it was, everything that he said, like that first comment was like literally the most personable that Chris Ash has ever been.
Right.
Since he has been here so far. Okay. So Bryan, you heard, what he said there. I know that we all feel differently. What are your thoughts on hearing that?
Well, everything he said is, again, it's coach speak. It's not what he did. He didn't build on what they were doing before. He changed what they did before. He changed the entire philosophy. I've heard people say, well, they're still playing a lot of man. Well, kind of. They're not playing the kind of man they played last year, but this isn't about man versus zone. This is what people are missing. It's about an overall lack of understanding that these players have in what he's asking them to do, which again is not on them. That's on him. I had a motto when I coached Sean that if I have one, maybe two players that aren't getting what I'm teaching, then they are not getting it. It's on them. And then I got to make sure I make extra time for them, and they've got to make sure extra time.
Yeah.
But if half or more than half of my position group isn't getting what I'm teaching, then I'm not teaching it well. And it's up to me to make the change, not them. And you watch the linebackers and just the lack of aggressiveness. You talk about the fact that they hardly blitz anymore. You look at they are running way more zone than they did, but it's not even just about man versus zone. It's about you're running a cover 3 defense, and you've got 3 receivers releasing vertically off the snap, and not one of them was rerouted or even made an attempt to reroute. Not one of them. You're playing off man coverage on the first play at the end of the game, and you're giving the inside away to Marcel Reed, who, by the way, up to that point in time, had completed less than 50% of his passes. He was way under 50% of his passes beyond 10 yards. I'm watching that during the game. You saw that during the game. Mm-hmm. Yet you're going to give him a free inside release on a slant route that just makes it stealing. It wasn't like Mario Craver went out there and made all these phenomenal catches. He made one really good catch, and he did a great job after the catch on the first touchdown, helped by some terrible tackling. Yeah. But he's catching the ball with nobody near him half the time. And so all of a sudden, all these players who were part of an elite top 5 defense last year, not even talking about Carson Hobbs, I'm talking Leonard Moore, I'm talking Christian Gray, Drake Bowen, Don Schuler, Jordan Patelho, who went down early, Boubacar, who went down early, but Gabriel Rubio, all these guys, Josh Burnham, apparently is now only good enough to play 3 plays, even though he was a force for you against Penn State and Georgia last year. Now he's only good enough for 3 plays because he's, had some, injury issues, but you felt he was good enough to play basically D-tackle near the goal line in that particular game. All of a sudden, these guys don't know what to do. They've gotten less aggressive as a unit. They've gotten less aggressive. Jaden Osbury's gotten less aggressive. Jalen Snead's gotten less aggressive. That's not a player problem, Sean. That's a coaching problem. And that is whatever you're trying to teach, they're not getting. And you've basically taken away all the aggressiveness, all the fire, and all the speed away from this defense. And you said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, but what if you broke it? You broke it. You got to fix it now.
Yeah, when you break it, you got to fix it. Yeah.
And this is his defense. It's a collaborate. No, this is your defense, because I just don't believe that having watched Mike Mickens going all the way back to his Bowling Green days, that all of a sudden he's changed his stripes going into this season. I just don't believe that. This is what Chris Ash wanted to do. And Marcus Freeman gave him the authority to do that, which is, again, that's on him. And so fixing it does not require a couple tweaks, Sean. Fixing it is going to require a complete overhaul of your philosophy. It's not about cover 2 versus cover 3 versus cover 4 versus man. It's about, we're going to be fast, we're going to be disciplined, we're going to be physical, and then teach them how to perform in that regard, because they don't even know how to play zone right now. It's not about, can you be a great zone defense? Go watch the Seattle Seahawks under Pete Carroll with the Legion of Boom. That was a pure zone defense, and they were elite because they were taught how to play. Right. Champ Bailey, back when they had the no-fly zone with him and Chris Harris, they were a man team, but they played off man, and they were elite at it because they knew how to play. You can be great in any type of scheme if your scheme is sound, if your players know how to execute it, if you have talent, and if your players can play fast, play physical, and play fundamentally sound football. And they're doing none of those things right now. And it's completely antithetical to who they were the last 3 years. Right. So you can't tell me it's just because you lost Xavier Watts, just because you lost Riley Mills, who, by the way, you didn't have him or Benjamin Morrison against Georgia or Penn State.
Right.
Well, Al Golden got off to a rough start. If Notre Dame would have given up the same amount of points against Miami and Texas A&M that they gave up to Ohio State and Marshall, they'd be 2-0 right now.
Yeah. Last year's defense gave up, I think it was 29 points through the first 3 games of the season. They gave up 21 points to Texas A&M in the second quarter last week. There's a big difference, and it looked awful. So, okay, 2 questions for you then. Do you think Marcus Freeman will have his hands on the defense more closely? Do you think that we see significant change this weekend? Purdue is not going to be Texas A&M or Miami, but they do have a new coaching staff. They are at least better, especially at the wide receiver positions this year than last year.
And quarterback. Ryan Brown is a good football. He started 5 games in his career, Sean, 2 last year, 3 this year, and he's thrown for at least 297 yards in 3 of those 5 games. And twice last week in their 33-17 loss to USC, they were driving with a chance to put points on the board. So certainly have to play better there. But do I think Marcus Freeman's going to have more hands-on? I do. One thing we've seen from Marcus Freeman is he doesn't let things go for a long period of time of not being good. We saw this team. We were having similar conversations about Northern Illinois and Miami of Ohio last year when they didn't play well, and he got his team on track to go play at a high level. He's going to have to do the same thing again. And look, Chris Ash isn't going to just walk in the door and say, hey, everything I thought I believed in is just it didn't work. It's going to be, look, they got to execute better. It's up to Marcus Freeman to walk in there and say, no, this is taking us away from who we are as a football team. We got to get back to playing Notre Dame football. This isn't Notre Dame football. It's not about zone versus man. It's about mentality. It's about discipline. It's about fundamentals. It's about playing fast and playing physical. They're doing none of those things right now. They can do all those things playing more zone. That's what's lost in this debate, Sean. It's got to go back to playing pure man. They don't even play man very well anymore, Sean.
Yeah,
like that's the they're just
they did
not
play better in the second half when they were playing more.
Well,
man,
kind of.
Right.
I mean, Marcel. Look, if CJ Carr's their quarterback, they scored 2 touchdowns in the third quarter. Because you had Casey Concepcion torched Christian Gray on a go route at the 5.
And that's the problem. You know, there were throws that Reed,
right,
either didn't make or didn't
and then
hit.
he missed a tight end on a wheel route against Carson Hobbs that would have gone for a big play as well. So, yeah, they did better. But to your point, some of the misses Marcel Reed had in the third quarter were because they were heating him up a little bit more. Because as a former quarterback and quarterback's coach, you don't have to actually get to a quarterback to impact his mental process, the speed with which he's going through his reads, his arm speed. He will hurry up. If you see Kingston Viliama-Asa looping around the middle trying to come right at you, you're going to speed up your whole process, whether he gets to you or not, because you're going to try to make sure he doesn't get to you. And that leads me to my final point is you got to play to your player's strengths. And when you have a 4th down situation and you're arguably your best natural pass rusher, Kingston Viliama-Asa, is standing over by the coaches, that's not a personnel problem. That's not a player problem. That's a coaching problem.
Right.
And those are the kind of mistakes that you just can't make in those situations. And they're going to have to fix those things and fix them in a hurry. And they can. They can fix them in a hurry.
Yeah. And I mean, that's been, you know, through the first couple games. Some of there've been some head-scratching decisions in terms of who's on the field, who's not on the field. That's for sure. It's very like if you could, because I saw this pop up here in the chat real quick. If you could encapsulate what you think Chris Ash is trying to accomplish by playing this way, like, what would you say?
I'm not trying to say this in a derogatory manner, but it's kind of similar to what Brian Van Gorder did, where what I mean by is it was, I really don't mean that to be like an insult.
There's no way for it not to.
but here's the problem. It's similar in that Brian Van Gorder tried to have answers for everything built into checks and calls and adjustments, and you're putting way too much on them. And they're thinking way too much. And, you know, one motion causes everybody to have to change something they're doing differently. And they're communicating, and the communication is slow to get out there. They're thinking too much. They're reacting too much pre-snap. They're not, hey, make the quick checks, get the calls in, and let's pin our ears back and go. It's just, it's an overall philosophy of reacting to the offense instead of taking the fight to the offense. Al Golden dictated to the offense, here's how this game is going to go. And the times they didn't do that, USC 22, USC 24, where they did kind of play a little bit more off, they got ripped up in those games. And so, you know, when they attack, when they go at teams, that's when you have more success. So it's a mindset. It's not about zone versus man. If you're going to play zone, don't have a 4-man pass rush that's easy to pick up, and then now you can pick apart. Because if you're going to bring 4 and I've got 6 blocking and you're going to be playing zone without rerouting as a quarterback, I'm licking my chops. And Marcel Reed is not a top 5 passer on the Notre Dame schedule. I'm just tell you that right now. There are some better quarterbacks that they're going to play, including this week and next week, and even some better receiving cores, or at least comparable receiving cores that they're going to play. NC State's got one. Boston College has a really good receiving core. USC has a really good receiving core. So this isn't the last really good passing offense they're going to face. So they're going to have to figure some of this stuff out real fast, and it's going to be about Marcus Freeman mandating that they get back to playing a certain way.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Notre Dame, Purdue tomorrow. Brian, I'll see you out at the stadium. Thanks for hanging out a little bit extra tonight.
Thanks for having me on.
Brian Driskell, IrishBreakdown.com. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, we've got more Notre Dame football to talk coming up. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. bringing the veil off here. Oh, forgot to put him in the studio. Yeah. We continue with Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Bobby Hensley, little pinch hitting duty. Again, no alarm bells or anything. Vince is a little under the weather. Kind of got late word that Vince was under the weather. Hopefully Vince is feeling better very soon. So Bryan Driskell, he was going to come on and talk recruiting anyway. He stayed a little bit longer. Texted Bobby. He came in a little bit earlier. So appreciate you being here, my friend.
Anytime I can spend with you, Sean.
I could just, the sarcasm is just dripping right off that comment.
I don't mean any of that. No, it's good to be.
Not at all. Not at all. Bobby and I used to hang out and drink Diet Cokes and eat hot dogs together in press boxes and press rows.
What it was is that Sean was old and he thought I was young, so he would ask me to go get him ice and Diet Coke.
Now let's be fair here. Yeah, that's right. I would take those notes. The most memorable night that Bobby and I shared together was the infamous 2014, was it quintuple overtime, 5 overtime game between Notre Dame and Louisville, men's basketball, when Jaron Grant went nuts at the end of the game. You remember my words at the end of regulation, because Louisville had pretty much been just taking care of business the whole game. It was a fairly boring game up until that point, and then Jaron hits a couple of 3-pointers, and they can't hear you. My words were, well, at least he's made it a little interesting, something along those lines.
No, I'm saying in the chat, they're saying they can't hear me.
Oh, one extra button there. There we go.
Now?
There we go.
No, yeah, that game was incredible because I'll never forget that they were down 12 with 48 seconds, and we were even the media had left already. There was nobody left in the whole building except for the fact that it was 95 degrees in the building. And
I do remember it being warm for such a cold February night outside. It was warm inside.
And game day was there at noon or up till noon for their basketball stuff. And then the tip was at 9. It went to 5 overtimes. And I had to sleep over with Sean. We left there about 2 a.m. I think it was.
I don't doubt it. It was late, 5 overtimes late. Because I think it might have been a 9 o'clock game.
It was 9 o'clock. And that's what I'm saying. Garrick Sherman didn't play all game because he was in Mike Bray's doghouse.
Yeah.
And he had 18 and 11 on that game.
In the overtimes only.
Yeah.
In the overtimes only, he picked up 18 and 11. Yeah.
And that was a wonderful time.
Man, crazy times.
That was
crazy
awful.
Times. Well, we've got some football coming up here tomorrow. Notre Dame and Purdue. Yes, tis the season. What's an acceptable number of points for Purdue to score Saturday?
So you mentioned this to me right before we went on the air. For them to win or for like Notre Dame's defense to look good?
What's an acceptable number of points for? You're always asking for the clarification.
Well, it's because I think it's 0.
Of course it's for Notre Dame to win. If Notre Dame loses tomorrow, we're in a whole different stratosphere with what's wrong with this team. So yeah, but what's acceptable? Notre Dame, I think we're assuming a Notre Dame win. They are favored by more than 3 touchdowns. They're 25.5 point favorites. So we all expect them to win.
Sure.
But still, there's winning, and there's winning how you think they should win.
And I understand what you're saying. I guess I'm just getting at the whole fact, like if Texas A&M scored 39 points, that would have been an acceptable number to,
because you won.
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, I understand it. Notre Dame's not in. We just got to win in advance now. They are. We have to make a resume builder win. We have to look good. I think that Purdue has to score under 14. I saw one of the 14 in the chat, but I'm saying under that. I'd say 13 you can live with because maybe there's a touchdown late at the end. I know you don't like the term garbage time. So
a P1 listener. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, when you're forced, you do things. No, but I really do think that towards the end of the game, you do get, it's not garbage time, like to your point, but you might get a little sloppy or have less talented players.
Right. Like game flow, like if we're talking about a game where Notre Dame is up comfortably by 4+ touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and then you put in the second and third string guys and maybe a touchdown or whatever
Drips
occurs
in,
by
yeah.
Purdue, and it goes over. We're talking about. I think eye test is involved here. So maybe points isn't the. This is the typical.
The only
Again,
thing,
Bobby just looking for a way to trip you up. But you know what I'm saying.
no, I understand what you're saying. So I said the number 13. But
End of
I
game
also don't think,
situations out of the equation.
unless Purdue runs the table in the Big Ten, though, nobody's gonna be looking at this game as a point, like for their style points, unless it's a 1-point win, maybe. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to win by enough. So I guess the number to me doesn't really matter. I think 13 would make the defense feel good moving forward. And so I'm giving you the credit to say that I understand that would help them feel better moving forward is 13.
I'm just wondering, how much have you coached in your past? Because you said a lot of words, but not a lot came out. It's
Under 13.
You've got a very word salad kind of way about you there.
No, I don't know. I feel like this game,
I'm saying 17. That's
17?
my answer. 17 is my answer. That is the upper limit. And again, I'm taking end of game. If it does turn into a blowout, that kind of situation out of the equation. I'm talking about when the starters are all still on the field, and the game is a game. 17 is my absolute ceiling on this.
So like you were saying yesterday that you don't think it'll be like last year where they're just going to completely boat race them.
Right.
So you're saying
based on what we've seen so far, I don't think that there's any reason to believe that there should be any boat racing tomorrow.
Right. So you're saying if it's 45-10 in the third or fourth quarter, that those last points don't count.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
Then I'm still going to stay 13. I just think that that'll be a good number for them to feel good moving forward.
I can live with that. Now, you said you were listening yesterday. Again, thank you. Appreciate your listenership. Jesse and I talked a little bit about Notre Dame's Wildcat package on yesterday's show. And Jesse got out
not wrong
his whiteboard. And he not only drew some stuff up, but we talked about some stuff as well. I think you listened a little bit. We talked about the Wildcat. We heard from a radio listener who was not happy about the whiteboard on the radio. So I'm going to play you this feedback that we got from this listener. And I hope you enjoy the video image that comes with it. Not the video, but the graphic image that comes with it as well.
So I can't believe you're doing this whiteboard nonsense. The majority of your customers are driving home in a car. They're listening on the radio. This is a radio show. Whiteboard nonsense is crazy. If you think you're picking up enough additional customers that you can afford to lose the radio listeners, have at it.
You know what grinds my gears?
Oh.
So,
well, that's you. You're old.
First and foremost, I appreciate the feedback. Thanks for listening. Having said that, if you're going to critique us, which you have the right to do, might I suggest a compliment sandwich? Are you familiar with the compliment sandwich, Bobby?
Yeah, not from you.
Oh, well, let me give you a compliment sandwich. Here's an example of a compliment sandwich for Bobby. As an example, Bobby, I really do enjoy doing the show with you. I always have a good time with you whenever you're here and you're, and even like when we're not and we're texting or, whatever, it hasn't been as much recently, but it's been, good to reconnect with you. Having said that, you might be a little bit deflective with some of your sarcasm and, being pedantic a little bit at times. But other than that, I appreciate you being on the show, especially today, since you came in here on short notice.
I mean, that kind of
compliment sandwich right there.
Sounded like a one bread sandwich. You use the same compliment twice. And the insult sounded kind of real, and the other one sounded like coach speak.
Yeah, but
go back to what Joe Allen said.
But it was sandwiched between two compliments. Even if it okay, maybe
that was more of a rap.
Maybe
it wasn't a sandwich.
Compliment rap. Okay.
No.
Okay.
I was thinking the same thing as I was listening because I did not see the whiteboard. And then it's funny when I saw you today, you're like the whiteboard stuff. I'm like, well, I listened. I didn't watch the whiteboard.
So you did listen, and
it was a good job of describing it, and I knew what it was talking about.
See, this is what I thought.
That's what I'm getting.
This is what because I went back and I listened. I listened to the segment in question where this guy like drew his criticism from of the whiteboard. Like I listened with a critical ear, and we talked about Notre Dame's Wildcat package. That's what we were talking about. There were a few things that maybe could have been a little bit more descriptive. Like Jesse will say, he's lined up here, he's going to move here, or he goes in, this guy goes in. Like, could that have been a little bit better? Yeah. But I would say 95% of it was more us just talking about how Notre Dame used the Wildcat package
unsuccessfully
and how they can do different things, whether it's line CJ Carr up in the shotgun and have one of the running backs next to him and then shift to where Carr is to the side and then the running back is in the shotgun, or bring a guy in motion and things like that. There was really not a whole lot that was specific to needing the visual aid. I thought we talked a lot about Wildcat concepts and things that could be done. I didn't really feel like you were really missing anything by not having the board itself. Your thoughts, because you just listened to it.
No, he did a good job describing everything, and I almost agree with everything he said. But I mean, the bigger issue to me is the Wildcat itself. Like, that's what I was thinking about. I know I guess there was a whiteboard. I didn't see it, but
you didn't miss it. You didn't miss it because you were only listening, correct?
And I was getting it. I was getting it, and I was listening, and I'm like, why don't they do more motion? And until I almost hope or think that they were hoping they could get some stuff on tape with the Wildcat moving forward that'd be successful. But now to his point, because he's like, why don't we do motion? Why don't we get CJ Carr moving? Why don't we have Love under center? Those kind of things would be great in a Purdue game if you're up by 20 right before you take him out for the end of the game.
Okay.
And so that's what I was thinking is I'm like, you're right. They should do more motion. They should bring, because like you guys were saying, take CJ Carr off the field if he's just standing there, which I've always thought that about the Wildcat. Like,
why leave him on the field? Like, who are you fooling at that? Because we talked about the fact that there were no safeties.
Right.
Like, who are you fooling at that
point? The linebackers are running downhill. They're already getting a aggressive start on the play, which is going to stop your momentum. So I just wished for the Wildcat, this is what I was thinking, that I wish they would use some of those plays with a wrinkle, maybe now against Purdue moving forward, a lesser opponent. So at least there's tape that then they can look at and say, like, well, we got to stay on the sides and we can't run downhill.
Joe said he heard it driving to pick his son up from practice. He knew what was going on. Again, I listened to make sure, and I felt like the conversation we were having was not by any means dependent on seeing things drawn on the board. It was more about concepts and things that you could do than it was specific visual.
I think
stuff. So,
and I'll go one more. I'll say that the whiteboard might actually be nice for the viewer. It's an added bonus. It's an ancillary material.
Oh, it's a feature, not a bonus, or a bonus, not a feature. Bonus, not a feature.
Bonus, not a feature.
There you go. There you go. I like it. So in the future, if you're going to leave us feedback, we appreciate the feedback. We appreciate everyone who watches and listens and watches in whichever order that you want to talk about. Remember, if you want to actually see the whiteboard, you can go to the Irish Breakdown YouTube channel or the Sports Radio WSBT YouTube channel. But if you want to leave us feedback, remember the compliment sandwich. Start with a compliment, put your critique in the middle, finish with a compliment. Hey, I enjoy the show. I'm not so into this whole whiteboard thing. It's a little hard to follow on the radio, but all in all, I like all the Notre Dame football talk that you guys have going on. See?
Did you just give yourself a compliment sandwich?
I'm just giving an example.
I mean, if you got to go that low just to fish for them, that's on you.
You know that you were telling me that yesterday.
I don't think I had you blocked yesterday, didn't I? I don't remember ever texting you.
I think you might have. Seriously. Thanks for the feedback. We'll continue to work on the audio part. But again, I felt like it was there yesterday. I felt like we talked about enough stuff that it wasn't just about what you were seeing on a board.
No, and I thought it was actually well presented. It was funny because he goes, I have 3 plays that I want to run through. You go, you got to make it quick.
Yeah, that's
right. And then he didn't go through any of them.
We were running a little bit long yesterday with all the stuff that we were trying to get in on yesterday's show. We are just on time, I think, right now. We'll take a break. Top of the hour, rapid fire comes up. Hour number 2, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. along with Bobby Hensley, starting up hour number 2 of the show. Glad to have you with us. Hour number 2 means rapid fire right here on the old rockin' radio station, Sports Radio WSBT. Roger Dodger in the YouTube chat, I saw this earlier, didn't get a chance to ask it. He asked if the Purdue drum travels. And Roger, of course, is our resident USC fan who pops in from time to time. And USC just played at Purdue last week. And of course, those of us around Notre Dame, and those around Purdue as well, remember 2021, the last time Purdue came here, there was a bit of controversy with that big drum because a few years back, Notre Dame, in addition to the regular tunnel that the Notre Dame team and band and everybody comes out of, there is now a visitors tunnel in the northeast corner of the stadium. Making sure I've got my directions right. Yes, northeast corner of the stadium. It is much more narrow, though, and the drum would not fit through that tunnel. And Notre Dame said, whatever you've got's coming through that tunnel. So if it doesn't fit through the tunnel, it's not coming out on the field. And so Purdue was not allowed to bring its big drum into Notre Dame Stadium, and there were a lot of hurt people as a result.
I don't really get that. Like, it's not your home stadium.
I know.
You're at Notre Dame.
Yes.
There's a lot of things. Like Stanford can't bring their band.
Right.
Notre Dame can make their own rules.
Right.
They letting Purdue come play football and take a loss. So I don't understand what it matters if the drum doesn't fit.
Exactly. So unless they have changed the dimensions of the drum, it will not be coming into Notre Dame Stadium, I don't think, tomorrow.
It's a little petty because obviously there's a big gate.
Oh, you just changed your tune. You said it's Notre Dame's rules. It's their stadium. They can make the rules.
I understand why Purdue would be mad about it, but do they take it to all their away games?
I think they do as much as possible.
As much as possible, unless the home team won't let it in.
I think at the time there was some because it was, again, 2021, however many years in games, they had taken it to X amount of, consecutive games and all this stuff. Look, it's a big dumb drum when it comes down to it.
It has nothing to do with football.
That's right. It has zero impact on the game. So who cares if the drum comes in the stadium? You got your cheerleaders in if you want. You got your band in if you want. You just didn't get to bring a drum in, okay?
You got your own cheering section in the upper southeast corner.
Right.
I was doing the directions
if Bevo's horns were too wide, he couldn't come in the stadium either, assuming that Texas
that'd be a long trip to not fit in the stadium.
It would. That's right. If you have a monster truck as your mascot, it's not coming through that tunnel unless it's miniature.
Unless it's like a Garth Brooks truck or something.
Right.
No, but this brings up kind of you gave me a rundown of stuff you want to talk about, and I might be going out of order. But this brings up, would you rather have Purdue or you said regional?
Okay, let's just go Bobby's rundown today. So Purdue is the battle for the shillelagh. We'll just start with Bobby's list of topics. Yes, that's right. Notre Dame and Purdue, of course, played every year from 1946 through 2014. And tomorrow's game will be the third time the two former regional rivals have played since 2021 and including 2021. Irish and Michigan State used to play every year as well. But they've only played twice since the annual series ended in 2013. So if Notre Dame was going to schedule one of those two Big Ten teams annually, which of them would you rather see it be?
I keep thinking about this. I don't know. I read your rundown and that I would rather have it be Purdue because Purdue's in state. So that means something. I know they're about equal distance from Notre Dame, so that's not really a factor, even though it's a different state. But having Purdue within the state, and there's the second biggest program in Indiana besides Notre Dame is probably Ball State. Chirp, chirp. No, it's IU, but that's even further. I think that the Purdue one, it makes sense. It's a great rivalry. They've played so many times. Michigan State, if I'm going to Michigan, I want to play the Wolverines. I'd rather have them on the schedule as much as possible.
Yes.
So I don't really need Michigan State's little brother, even in their own state. I don't want them coming down to our state. I don't really care. I'd much rather it be Purdue.
And that's how, both of these, both the Purdue rivalry and the Michigan State rivalry, when Notre Dame was full force playing those two teams every year, and Michigan most years, and Stanford every year, and BC most years for a while, and Pitt most years for a while. When all those rivalries meant more to the other side than it did to Notre Dame. And there are only so many intense rivalries you can have. So I definitely wouldn't want all of them. But like Purdue and Michigan State, like their fan bases were like the two most angry fan bases, like directed toward, like when I walk through the parking lot tomorrow, I'll see and hear things from Purdue fans that you don't typically see and hear from most visiting fan bases, like nasty.
I was going to say,
stuff.
so bad stuff?
Yeah.
Just because they're bitter? Because it's like
because they hate Notre Dame, like in their souls.
Right.
They hate Notre Dame.
But
I
like,
realize a lot of people do, but those fan bases specifically. But if I'm going to pick one, I think I agree with you on Purdue because of proximity. And it, again, like a very traditional rivalry going all the way back to 1946 that was played, every year, basically post World War II up until the Big Ten and ACC's expansions. That's why it had to kind of go off the docket. Notre Dame is playing Purdue more regularly, but I think that would be the one I would pick.
It's like they say in the chat too, that Purdue is almost a guaranteed win. So that kind of helps Notre Dame to feel good as well. They're getting a Big Ten win. They actually had, I don't remember the year, but they played one game that was the Shamrock Series in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Where they just shuffled Purdue
That
into that.
That was the last year of the annual series before it broke off there for a few years.
So it's kind of nice with Purdue. You can use them for the Shamrock Series. You can play a neutral site in Indy. You can play like home and homes. It's not going to be too taxing on you. It's almost what Michigan does for a living, where they schedule all the directional Michigans to play and get some wins early. But not only are they getting a win, they're getting a quality conference win, or a win against a quality conference team. I obviously know Notre Dame's not a conference.
Yeah.
But I think that Purdue is the only. I think it's nice. I think it makes sense. I grew up with it. And that's kind of it too. I'm just used to it.
Yeah.
Like the Michigan
every
State,
other year,
I'm like,
Purdue used to come in.
Yeah, I don't really care about Michigan State. Go deal with Michigan. And I think it's more funny what you said about the rivalries, because when I used to play NCAA football, like 14, before they revamped it recently, every team they would list the rivals, and almost every team had Notre Dame listed, and then Notre Dame's was just USC and Michigan.
Right. There you go. Perfect
that was
example.
all they had.
Right there. I do like, I don't think Purdue needs to be on the schedule every year. I don't want Michigan State on the schedule every year, but we've talked about this before. I think like it would be nice if you do like a 2-year home and home with Purdue, a 2-year home and home with Michigan State, 2 years with Michigan, and then just kind of rotate those older traditional rivals, rotate through like that. We'll be curious to see what everyone's scheduling philosophies look like, though, with all this, everything that's going on with conference schedules and, obviously expanded conferences and all that kind of stuff, and what seems like growing animosity from the Big Ten towards Notre Dame.
And then even Northwestern you could throw in there, because they're a regional. That's always the discussion.
Yeah.
Who's Chicago's team?
But Northwestern is what
Northwestern
is. They're like you talk about stepchildren. They're probably the stepchild of the Big Ten, since they're the only private school in that conference. And even though they're close to Notre Dame, it's like, Northwestern's never been a rival by any means.
Well, maybe they could switch off with Boston College then, because then there's their private school connection.
Fill in the blank. Blank has the most on the line this weekend when Notre Dame hosts Purdue.
Tyler Buckner. I think the first extra point or field goal, we're really going to see something. I'm just saying. That's not the answer you wanted, was it?
Well, it's not the answer I was expecting. What I want and what I get are two different things most of the time. So is that a serious answer, or is that just kind of
No, I think it's more about the defenses as a whole, because they've given up points. We have 2 losses. The whole team is under fire right now. There's another question I'm not going to allude to right now because you'll ask it.
That's good. That's good. Like, stay in the present.
Yep.
Don't worry about what's on the rundown 10 minutes from now.
Well, it's like, PTI. They put
Even
a little
if it
rundown on the side of the screen.
Or pseudo rundown. Yeah.
No, I think it's the defense. They got something to show me. They didn't do terrible, but they lost. They gave up 41 points. I don't care what the game flow is. That's too much.
Oh, they did terrible, Bobby. They did
well,
terrible.
I'm saying we can nitpick, we can get into stuff, but I'm saying they have the most to prove, and it's not a singular person. It's the whole unit that needs to get better. So I'm interested to see if they can they're going to rebound because Purdue is a lesser opponent. They're barely better than a MAC school. So
they're going to be better. They're
Yeah.
better this year. Like Bryan and I talked about, they do have some good receivers. You know, you got Nitro Tuggle, the local kid who started his career at Georgia, and he's here now. They've got a couple guys who are game breakers, and they've got a better quarterback, even though Brown threw 3 interceptions against USC last week. I mean, like their defense, I don't see. Well, I expect Notre Dame to score. Do I expect them to score 66? Excuse me, like they did last year in West Lafayette? No, because they are better coached and they do have a little bit better talent on the roster right now. I will say this, like it's interesting because looking at the YouTube chat, the responses to this, you've got Chris Ash,
Freeman.
You've got Marcus Freeman, you've got Chris Ash, then you've got Ash and Freeman. So
combo platter.
That's right.
I was going to say,
and it's definitely one of those two. I think it's more Marcus Freeman because if you lose and you're 0-3, not only are you 0-3, you know, technically you've lost your last 4 games going back to the national championship game, but specific to what's going on right now, Ash is the biggest part of that. So you could say that Chris Ash is definitely part of the equation, but it just feels like for Marcus Freeman, the credibility with the fan base is as tenuous as ever right now after that defensive debacle that we have seen these first couple games, going from an elite defense that was only giving up a little bit more than 15 points a game last year with many of the same players back. And Marcus Freeman saying this week that the defensive structure is still the same. It is, quote unquote, Notre Dame's defense. It's just Chris Ash, you know, imposing his philosophies on it. So Chris Ash is, you know,
in trouble.
Chris, yeah, like I had to catch myself there.
I saw it.
He has a lot on the line as well, but Marcus Freeman, because he hired Chris Ash, and if Notre Dame were to lose this weekend, it would be because their defense probably gave up at least 40 points once again.
See, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying I agree in a different way because
that's fine.
Freeman is a defensive coach by nature. He's a defensive player. That's the side of the ball that he's the strongest on. So you would think with him being head coach, that should be where they're really solid. So you can say Ash, but I think Freeman is very closely tied to that side of the ball. So for him, he needs to make sure that defense performs better.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think there's more on the line for Marcus Freeman this week because of what we've seen so far. Yeah, like
it starts at the head, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because Marcus Freeman is the guy who brought Chris Ash in here.
Are you getting, I hate to say this word, but do you getting any Brian Kelly, Van Gorder vibes right now?
Oh, yes. We've talked about that this week.
Yeah. So that's what I'm starting to feel too. And something needs to show on that side of the ball.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree with that. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, we've got more rapid fire. We've got more Notre Dame topics. We've got some Notre Dame game props, and we've got some other stuff coming up in rapid fire as well. Tons of stuff coming up, including some Jim Harbaugh thoughts. We'll do that when we return. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com and Rapid Fire. Budweiser's weekday sports beats with IrishBreakdown.com. Sean Stires, Bobby Hensley. It's rapid fire. Hope you're having a good night. Man, this show is just flying by.
Is that good or bad?
It's good. It's good.
I'm fishing for a compliment sandwich.
Well, you haven't given me a compliment sandwich. I gave you one, whether you liked it or not.
Oh, I can give you a compliment anytime you want. I think you look good for 85.
See, that's not a compliment sandwich. That is more of your deflective sarcasm is what that is.
I mean, we can pay for therapy, but I guess we can do it here. No, I appreciate doing this show with you. It's nice to always chit chat with you. And it's funny because sometimes when we go to break, we have better conversations than we even do when we're live.
That's true. That's true. It's always a good time. Always a good time. Well, a few of the national college football talkers this week have said that Notre Dame could be in a better spot at 0-2 this year with 2 losses to 2 ranked teams than they were last year when they were 1-1, with the 1 loss being to Northern Illinois. So, Bobby, do you buy or sell that line of thinking?
I'm going to almost go all in that we agree on this, that's bogus. Because you haven't won a game yet. I understand 1-1, depending on who it is, but 0-2 against 2 ranked teams doesn't matter. You haven't won anything. Right now, if you were to take the temperature of the fan base, I'm pretty sure they'd be pretty unhappy. And
I'm pretty sure you're right because we hear from them every day.
And unsure of where they're going from here.
Uh-huh.
Because somebody in the chat, I don't remember who it was, and I told you last break, they said, well, if you lose to I think
not even
that
close.
You need to have a win. You need to have traction going. You don't have any traction right now.
That's right. And you know what this line of thinking takes out of the equation, because like what they're saying is, okay, you're 0-2 to 2 ranked teams. Okay. And you've lost those 2 games by a total of 4 points. Okay. But again, what you're not taking into account is how those games happen. Like you haven't lost 2 low-scoring defensive type battles, for example. Like it's very positive that you've got a first-time redshirt freshman starting quarterback who is himself, helped the team average over 30 points per game through 2 games. And in the fourth quarter, he has led you to points when you absolutely needed points to either give you the lead or tie the game up. So like those things are good factors. But what they don't take into account is the atrocious nature of how your defense has played, because of the fact that through 3 games last year, Notre Dame's defense under Al Golden, through the first 3 games, including that Northern Illinois loss, they gave up a grand total of 29 points in the first 3 games of last season. This year's defense gave up 21 points in the second quarter to Texas A&M, and it could have been worse. Again, like when we talk about wide open guys, you didn't see wide open guys and all these explosive plays being made against Notre Dame like are being made this year. And that's the most distressing thing, is just the volume of explosive plays that are being made against Notre Dame. So there's no world where 0-2, just because it happens to be to a couple of ranked teams, is better than where you were last year. In either case, you've got to win out. And I think winning out this year is much more tenuous because of the fact that you have a defense that has not shown it can stop anybody yet.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I think Marcus Freeman did such a good job of getting that team better last year, week by week. And
he did.
You could see them building throughout the season. So there's your optimism point. If you're going to say 0-2 is not that bad, because it was 2 tough teams, one on the road, prime time on a Sunday to start the season, and then the second game at home in prime time. So I understand their marquee matchups, but I'm saying I'm not saying it's impossible to come back. What I am saying is I think it's harder from 0-2 because you already have that second loss point. So at the end of the year, when you get to the playoff talk and the politics that go on in that room, how are you going to defend yourself as Notre Dame with no huge ranked wins potentially, saying we should be in that playoff?
You've lost to the 2 good teams that you've played.
And those 2 teams might not hold up all year.
Yeah. And, like there's nothing that's a given anymore because, again, like USC, to my point, any team with a good quarterback and a couple good receivers is going to give this Notre Dame defense fits. USC did last year when Notre Dame was one of the top teams in the country. They barely escaped granted road game. And that's always happened. It seems like, like 18, 20, and then last year in 24, the 3 years that Notre Dame has made it to the college football playoffs, they've always had to finish in the Coliseum against USC. And those Trojan teams all three of those teams gave Notre Dame fits, trying to finish off the season and get into the playoffs. Rivalries actually matter, I guess.
And isn't it funny that I saw a bunch of posts this week that said, how come a 3-0 USC team is rated below an 0-2 Notre Dame team? So maybe there's your answer, that Notre Dame putting that schedule together the way they did, that's going to help them in the long run if they win out. But do you think that they make the playoff if they win out?
I think they're going to be in the conversation, but again, it's going to be more than just winning out,
because the defense and the holes.
No, because it's also who are the other teams who are 10-2, who are the other teams that are 9-3, because there's going to be a bunch of teams from the SEC who are all going to have 2 and 3 losses, and that's who maybe 1 or 2 from the Big Ten as well, and that's who Notre Dame is going to be jockeying with to try to get one of those last spots if they're in that equation. And then it's going to come down to, as you said, who have you beaten, who have you lost to? And at that point, even if you are 10-2, you're probably you really need Miami and Texas A&M to be college football playoff teams when it's all said and done.
I think we're talking big picture, but if Miami wins the ACC, that's a huge feather in Notre Dame's cap almost.
Exactly.
That they played them so tough in Miami. If A&M is one of those 9-3 teams, I don't think a 10-2 Notre Dame team makes a playoff over them.
Yeah.
So you're already losing to yourself because of your schedule. You lost to that team. It's really hard to argue that you should be in over them.
Right. Exactly. We actually agree on something.
I don't
Bobby.
like that. It
You're
feels
right.
dirty.
It's just
feels wrong.
Wash it off my skin.
I will take 2 showers.
All right. I've got some game props for tomorrow. You gave me a hard time, by the way, last week for taking all the overs.
And they all hit.
They all hit. Were you watching? Were you paying attention?
I don't know if you noticed, but right when the last one hits, when I stopped texting you.
I should have actually put something on. I was like, man, I wish I would have parlayed all this, because they actually – but look, they were relatively low numbers to begin with. That's why I was confident in them. Like Carr's passing yards, Jeremiah Love's rushing total, Jadarian Price's rushing total, those kind of things.
Yeah, well, also I said good thing for Great House on the receiver side. You don't want to call that out. That's fine. They when a game's 41-40, a lot of the overs can hit. But then what was your score prediction at the end of that?
Well, the score prediction was obviously very off. And, like I've told Jesse, don't include the result of the game. If you're going to do a bunch of player props, don't include the result of the game in there, because all you get like one has nothing to do, because you can like from yardage and all those different kind of things, you can still hit those, but the game might just end up like you had last Saturday night, and that's going to throw your parlay off.
Well, but like you said last week, you go, yeah, I guess I didn't. You even had a weakness at the way out. We were going out the building, and you said, I guess I did take all the overs, didn't I? And I only said the final score would be like 20 points.
Yeah, but that was just you putting the negative thoughts in my head. That's what it was.
You just think I'm negative. I don't understand that. I've been very positive today.
Okay, Notre Dame is a 25.5-point favorite against Purdue. Do you like that number?
No, I don't like it.
I don't either. I'd take maybe 17 is kind of where, like, if I was going to, buy down a little bit, I think that's where I would be, but you're not going to get very good odds on that.
If we're talking about for what we're going to bet on FanDuel, 23, I'm not touching. 17, I could think about. I would have to have it be around 13.5.
Wow. That close.
Just
huh?
No,
because again, there's so many questions with the defense.
Yes. And that's the thing is, like, if you have a good defensive game, maybe you can pull away, get a couple touchdowns. But when you're giving up yards and points, they got to prove something before I can feel comfortable saying, oh yeah, they're definitely going to be ahead by 66 or, like last year. If you had asked me the Purdue prop bet for points, the spread last week before Texas A&M, I probably would have taken the 20.5 maybe.
Yeah.
But no, not now.
Over under is 51.5. And again, this seems insanely low to me, especially for Notre Dame being a 25.5-point favorite. They're saying that they think Notre Dame is going to do all the scoring, even with that defense. They think that
that's low.
I would pound the over on this personally.
You said 25.5 or 50.
51.5 is the over under.
Yeah, so they would score 28. Yeah, I think that's way over, especially when you had them scoring almost that total over-under last week against a better opponent. And like I said, I think Notre Dame's out to prove something, so I'm pretty sure that over will hit. I don't know. There's no locks in gambling, but I talk about numbers. That's one I'm probably going to take.
Some people like to tell you there's a lock. I would just 51.5 as the over-under for this game just seems way low.
And like, there's no bad weather coming. I'd understand if there was like a monsoon or something. I don't see any reason. The only thing that could change that would be more turnovers, but I don't see that happening.
CJ Carr's passing number, 232.5 yards. It's gone up a little bit every week.
I see. Here's what the gambling world is fascinating, and I enjoy gambling and putting on FanDuel or whatever. But it's weird if you're going to put so much more on the over for passing. That's going to be more points, which you'd think the over under would be down. So it seems like I'm going to take the over because, again, lesser opponent. It's been growing up, but then I don't understand why the over under is so low.
Right. Like these numbers don't really match.
They don't jive. You can't do a parlay with them for sure. I guess maybe that's a better way to look at it.
Like I said,
I'm thinking too big picture.
If you're going to do a parlay, do it with the player props. Don't do it with, like any results of the game. I like the over on CJ Carr's 232.5 passing yards, though. 13.5 is his rushing total. He had negative rushing yards last week because of the sacks. I would stay away from that one personally.
It's like Bobby O'Shea.
Because they didn't even try to run.
He has a lock of the week. He's willing to give out. I'm kind of the opposite. Depends what the odds are. But if you have some number that low for 13, maybe he sneaks a couple at the whatever point in the game, and he gets to that number and doesn't.
I don't think they need to run him in this game. That's the thing. When you've got Price and Love, I think it won't.
So what would you put his over under at then? For him to rush, for you to be enticed to gamble.
I think 13.5 is respectable. It's like to be enticed to bet the over, I would probably say 5.5 yards, honestly.
No, that's what I'm saying. Because the sack yards come out, correct? That's how you get negative.
That's exactly right. And you don't know how that line is going to perform.
Or even at the end of the game, taking a couple knees, you might lose some yards.
They're still going into game 3, even against what's supposed to be an inferior opponent. There's still questions that have to be answered by Notre Dame as to, okay, you've played 2 ranked teams and you lost 2 close games to them. But now, how are you going to respond when you're 0-2 and you're playing an inferior opponent? That's what Notre Dame has to answer. And so, on a number like that, I would completely stay away from it. Like the passing yards, I like.
So do you think over 250 for him passing?
Well, I mean, I would go over 232.5. I don't know about 250. He could end up pushing 300, 280 to 300 by the time it's all said and done.
So that would mean a blowout win, but you don't want to talk about end game result when you do props. I got it. I'm learning from you.
Okay. Well,
You're old. You have a lot.
I don't know if I'm the one to learn from, but
we're both working here.
Ryan Brown, Purdue quarterback, 175.5 yards is his number.
This is going to sound negative, which I'm playing into your narrative. I think it's over because there's just too many questions on defense. I think it has to be. I wouldn't touch it though.
Yeah.
Because if the defense comes out motivated, and maybe Texas A&M and Miami are better than we think. I love this time of football because you just don't know. There's not enough data points yet. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how good anybody is. But I'm going to say over just based on what I've seen in the eyeball test. It looks like there's just too many glaring weaknesses in the secondary. Like you said, the quarterback, and you said a couple of fast receivers, and they put up yards before.
I'll tell you what, we'll take a timeout, our final timeout of this show. I've got a couple more props, including Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, and the Notre Dame wide receivers, and we got some more after that as well. So we'll take our final break, and then we're back to wrap up Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat and Rapid Fire. Winding down Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com and Rapid Fire. I'm Sean Stires, joined by Bobby Hensley tonight. Thanks again, Bobby, for coming in early on short notice. I really enjoyed doing the show with you, Bobby.
Sean, I was excited to see that I had 4 texts from you in a row. That made me feel good. And then I came in and you were semi-nice, and now you're ending it on a high note. So there's your sandwich.
See, I've just the sandwich has been the show. The show is the sandwich. That's what it is.
Well, I think that's for the consumer to decide. I'm diabetic. I don't eat sandwiches.
Oh, that's true. That's true. No bread. Even like the low carb bread. Are you able to eat any of that? Have you tried any of it?
I mean, my mouth works. I can eat anything, but no, they still aren't great.
All right. All right. A few more game props for tomorrow. Some player props. Jeremiah Love's over-under is 101.5 rushing yards. Let me ask you this. Against Purdue, how many carries does it take for Jeremiah Love to get to 100 yards? Is it going to happen tomorrow? Almost got there against Texas A&M last week.
Right. I'm going to say it'll take 12. So 11.5 would be my over-under for that.
I think that's where I'm at as well. I think he gets to 100 tomorrow. 12 would be my number. John Kristofik says 20. Now, he had 23 and had like 93 yards last week. I just feel like he's finally going to break a couple against this Purdue defense. I think, remember Jadarian Price last year. Now, just because a guy did it last year doesn't mean he's going to do it in this game. I feel like Jeremiah Love tops the century mark. So I would be over on 101.5. I think it takes him 12 carries to get there.
Yeah, because I think if you pop a couple, then you just, ground out the rest of it. You'll be there. But, well, who do you think will have a more higher yards per carry, Price or Love?
I think it probably ends up being Price. That's what it's been for the season so far. He's been very impactful on the limited amount of touches that he's gotten. And I think that defenses tend to relax a little bit when they see Price in there, and they forget that, like, this is a dude who can make you pay. Like, he's got that explosiveness and quick twitch himself. You can't relax when Price is in the game, but I think he does. I think his number is 62.5. I think they're both going to go over their numbers tomorrow. And, I know that you thought I was crazy last week, so I guess we'll track this.
Oh, I think you're crazy every week. I'm going to say under for Love, and I'm going to say over for Price.
Okay.
Kind of for the same reason. Price is, I don't know, it's just the eyeball test to me. He just looked better with the same blocking, the same schemes. It seems like Price, maybe Love, maybe he's taking a step back this year, or like to your point, they're more keyed on him.
Well, I don't think
he's in there.
Yeah, I think that they are keyed on him. And I think last week especially, he was too much in a hurry. He was rushing himself too much, not waiting, like that extra split second for the block to set up and get there and make that cut and get like he wanted to hit a home run, it felt like to me every time he touched the ball.
Well, and to your point, I'm enjoying that. I agree with you, Sean. There's another compliment. But the more the car looks steady behind you throwing the ball, that'll start opening up the running game, obviously. Because right now, I think they could kind of key in and keep them all, the line of scrimmage, keep an extra linebacker in. And now when they start to air the ball out more, hopefully they can start opening up a couple runs. And like you said, they're not playing the caliber of opponent they have the last 2 weeks.
So this is not an official prop on FanDuel. Jeremiah Love's total yards over under 150, rushing and receiving combined.
I'm going to say under by quite a bit.
Joe wants to know, Bobby, do you live your life this negative all the time? If you only knew, Joe, if you only knew.
Is that the vibe that I give off? That I'm that negative? I don't think I'm negative. I was trying to be positive today.
Bobby is the ultimate counterculture guy. He always wants to mow against the grain, no matter what it is. He wants to come, like with his own thing. He and another guy that I know are very much like that, even though they both deny they are like each other, and he knows who I'm talking about. We don't have to talk about it right now.
There goes that compliment sandwich, I guess. Huh?
Which that was the smack you in the face sandwich.
Yeah, dang.
Which of these Irish receivers has the best chance to go over on his yards? Faison, 38.5. Raritan, 44.5. Malachi Fields, 52.5.
think Fields 52.5 feels like a number that they can eclipse. I hate receiving numbers when I'm gambling because those props seem like if you get a couple big ones, obviously you're already at that number because they're not going to put a number at 150.
Stymie says all of the above.
I think Sean. So Stymie is Sean.
I think it's, and Joe says all three because of course everyone, the answer is always Notre Dame. So like,
right
there, but I guess, like the number for CJ Carr was what, 232.5. So obviously if he goes over that, which I think he will, someone's going to have to catch the passes.
So you think Love will be over 150 total yards then too? Meaning
I do.
He has over 50 yards receiving.
He might have over 150 rushing yards. It's just going to depend on how they use them and what the score dictates how much they continue to need to use them. I think that the running backs are going to have a really big day against Purdue.
The caveat being maybe they're up by quite a bit and he doesn't have to play the whole fourth quarter.
Right.
And that could hurt some of those prop numbers, which doesn't matter. And you take that any day, that you can get that kind of win.
Yes. But I think Fields is of the three, Fields is the one I would pick to go over 52.5 yards, just because he's got the most targets. He's got the most, behind Raridan, he's got the most yards right now, but Raridan's basically got two longer, one really long one, and another fairly long one. So that's bolstered his number so far. I feel like Fields, because he gets the ball so much, he's become Carr's favorite target in a short amount of time. Yeah.
So over under, how many Wildcat plays are used? I don't have a whiteboard here, but
oh man. Again, I hope they don't need them that much. I'd probably put it at 4.5 for this game.
I'd take the under on that.
Would you?
Yeah, I think they'll maybe play one just to have a wrinkle in it, hopefully, like we were saying earlier. But I think one would be maximum.
Okay, we've got about 2.5 minutes here. Fill in the blank. UCLA and Virginia Tech both firing their head coaches after 0-3 starts this season is blank.
I think short-sighted because now all of their players are available to enter the portal immediately. So you aren't even committing to the whole season anymore.
They can enter the portal, but the portal doesn't open until January. So
right, but UCLA is just in turmoil. That one I get. They're having a really bad result on their transfer quarterback that they paid off from Tennessee. So I understand that they went all in on him and it's not working out. But Virginia Tech, I don't really get. I don't know what your expectations for the year were. Neither one of them are playoff teams.
No, exactly. And the fact that it went this badly, this quickly, there's a theory that I've seen this week that it's these guys were both on the bubble,
they weren't solid,
fairly tenuous, but because of where the transfer portal is, basically you keep them in place so that you can go out. So, you don't want to hurt yourself with the transfer portal. You've got a coaching staff in place. And so now you do it early in the season so you can, reboot, and then whatever happens during the course of the season, you can write that off. And then, again, you're assessing portal and all those kind of things. Like it's just another impact of the portal, but
it depends who you get.
It's crazy when you think of this UCLA Tennessee thing,
right?
Specifically,
that's what I'm saying. They paid off that
Iamaleava. Yeah, that's right. Like they thought they had the big move, and look at where Tennessee is.
Looking way better. Like
exactly.
Not even just, okay, that's our backup. No, he's better. And then, but like I said, is Michael Vick going to go to Virginia Tech? Is Tommy Rees going to UCLA? A lot of questions.
There are. We'll see what kind of answers we have. Game Day Sportsbeat starts at 11 tomorrow, live from the linebacker. Join him there. Reggie Brooks among the guests. Join Jim, Eric, and Tyler, 11 until 2:30 tomorrow. And, of course, kickoff at 3:30 right here on Sports Radio WSBT. Bobby, thanks as always. I'll talk to you next week.
All right, appreciate it.
Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com.